Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the Nordic BIM Summit, one of the largest events focusing on buildings and infrastructure in Europe. My name is Per Karlsson and I'm Director of Building and Infrastructure at Symetri, and we are hosting this event. This year online from our studio on top of Carolina Towers here in Stockholm, and in the middle of the most developed area in Stockholm. And helping me out are our moderators, Thomas Lindgren from Symetri, and BBC journalist Maddie Savage.
Hi there, really great to be here. Fantastic view here in the centre of the Swedish capital. As you mentioned, I'm a freelance journalist for the BBC. I'm going to be here helping you guys with some journalistic questions and also getting used to very bravely doing this event studio style online, very different to what you would normally do. So hats off to these guys. And just to let you viewers at home or in the office know, this is a COVID-safe environment. We've all been tested before going on air, and I know you can hear from my accent I'm British, but I live here in Stockholm, so no sneaky illegal flights for me to get here. So looking forward to today. Thomas.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, Per, for welcoming us, and thank you so much for all of you joining us online. And now this is really nice to have you here and doing this as a digital event. Before we kick off this, we're going to send off Per to the green room, and then we're going to take a look into our technical platform that you probably already have logged into because you're watching us right now. So, Per?
Yeah, we'll see you in a moment, Per. I will tell you guys a little bit more about the topics we're going to be talking about today and tomorrow. The main theme for all of this is new beginnings in a post-pandemic era. We all know how much the world has changed over the last 12 months or so. We've got used to different ways of working, digital tools, working from home. And now we're going to be really digging a little bit deeper into what all of this might mean for the future, how we work, what our offices, cities, other types of environments might look like, how that will affect how we socialise, and also how all of this taps into the bigger goal to try and build a more sustainable future.
Yes, that's right. And it's going to be really interesting. And we are going to do that by talking to and listening to some very, very interesting keynote speakers. And we're going to add that to that panel discussions with invited guests. But to make it even better, we have invited you to take part in this dialogue as well through our digital platform. And I'm going to present that a bit to you. So I hope you got a picture up there online, and I will talk to them. So in the beginning, up in the right corner, we have this small aeroplane or arrow where you got the message tab. And when you put that out, you can see all the people online, where you can actually address and talk to people and chat on that online. You also have the next little icon is the bell, and if you click on that, you can raise your hand and you can do other things. In there, there's a setting where you can accept notifications from us, and please turn that on so you can see that if there's something going on and if we do have other announcements. And to the far right, you also have the profile button, and if you look into that, please complete your profile information. And it would be very nice if you can add a nice picture of yourself for others to look at and to recognize you in the chat. And that's really a nice thing to do. Below that, you have the sessions bars where you can see where you are. You have one tab for the event and also one for the main stage. And below that, you have the chats tab, you have the polls, you can have the attendees list, and you also have the question and answers. And the question and answers is a really important one for this. That's where you're going to interact with us and the panels with your questions. So you are very welcome to provide your questions to our keynote speakers or to the panelists, and we encourage you to really use this feature to get involved with us. Over to the left side of the panel, you have the reception on top, and on that you have all the different stages or rooms that we normally use in the event. So currently you're on the main stage, and this is live right now, and then you have the session rooms. In the sessions rooms, you will see session rooms for our different partners. We have presentations going on, especially tomorrow, for tomorrow's agenda, and there you're going to meet some fabulous partners and also a lot of Symetri colleagues and friends. Before underneath that, you have the networking area where you can chat with additional people and your peers on the event. So this is kind of a social event on a digital platform. I really like that. And on the far down left side, we got the expo booth. And there you find all the familiar faces from the Symetri crew. You got Pierre Golander on the cloud solutions, Torbjörn Huberberg on the Navier structure side, and all the other guys coming to present all the new features and stuff. So please join in and use them later on. And at 3 o'clock, we're going to have a break. And then you can use all these tools. You can use the networking area, you can go to the expo booth, and you can also mingle with people and listen to them. So please reach out, take contact, and be active. That's it. So Maddie.
Yep, thank you for all of that, Thomas. Sounds like lots to look forward to. And also just a reminder that you can also get involved on social media as well if you want to give us any feedback on the event. The hashtag is Nordic BIM Summit. And when we're talking about times, just a reminder, we're using Central European time. I know that the UK, you're an hour behind, and Finland, you're an hour ahead. But we're all looking forward to a jam-packed afternoon. So let me introduce you then to our very first keynote speaker. She's someone that I am lucky enough to have had the opportunity to speak to previously through my freelance work for the BBC. She is an absolute expert when it comes to leadership, entrepreneurship, and how the way we work is set to change in the future, particularly as a result of the pandemic. She's based at Stockholm School of Economics, but she joins us from her home in the Swedish countryside where she's been riding out the pandemic. Lena Lid Falkman.
Where would you live and work if you could choose? I think that is a super important question right now. We do not want to live as centaurs, as we're doing right now, where we are humans from the waist and up, and then it's sort of unclear. Who knows what I'm wearing now? Maybe cozy pants. But we do not want to be forced back to the office when the pandemic is over. I see the pandemic as a disruption in choosing sustainable work and life, both for the environment, but also for ourselves as a society and as individuals. So my name is Lena Lid Falkman. I'm a scholar at Stockholm School of Economics and at Costa University, and my specialty is leadership and communication and work-life science. So I spent the last 10 years focusing on how digitalization changes how we work, co-work, live, and lead. I just came out with a chapter in a book called Sweden Through the Crisis, where I talk about how the pandemic has changed our workplaces, our offices, but also our work life. And my goal for today in talking to you is to talk about how this has worked out for us, how we can work together, even though we're still apart, and what I feel that we should take with us from this lesson during the pandemic, and how we could think about our society and about our work and life in the future. So how has it worked? Well, there are actually some interesting results. Winning Temp, for example, has showed that productivity and efficiency is high. Though there are some reports on higher mental health issues, so we're feeling alone, and we're also feeling worried. I did a study this spring where I interviewed people at a company talking about how it was to work from home, and some very interesting results in how they took charge of their life and their time, their calendar, even though it's super booked with meetings, and that seems to have gotten worse over the time during the pandemic. There was still some content in saving time, not traveling, and in getting more focus time, which they don't get at the office. So in December 2020, there was a study of 500 managers and 500 employees asking how they wanted to work after the pandemic. And as you can see in the diagram, both groups agree on that they want to work flexible. They want to both be at home and at the office, but there are actually slightly more of the managers who want people back in the office. So if we don't talk about this now, how should we work? I think it's the Wild West coming, because who should decide on where I should do my work? Is it the manager or the coworker, the employee? So why not start talking about this? Why not have a strategy already? How much should I be at the office? What should I do when I'm at the office? I think Spotify is super interesting, where their work from anywhere policy, where they actually trust their employees to make a choice and then adapt the ways of work and the way that they want to work together, to adapt that after that. I also think that we can learn a lot from distributed companies that do not have an office, that only work together on a digital platform, and how do they work and make the connection and make the cohesion and make the culture work for them. So does it really work to work together but sit apart? It shows that we actually can. There are some research done before the pandemic also on virtual teams and remote leadership that show that trust, the so important trust, is actually built in virtual relationships as well, even though it's kind of different. Because if I get a new coworker, we get a relational trust first, like I get to know the person. But if I'm put together with someone digitally, we create a task-based trust, so that I know that I can trust this person when he says, I'm going to mail you after the meeting, and he does that. She is on time into meetings, so that I know that this will deliver. We will make a deliverance together. And that is actually kind of more important when you work together. Another thing that I think is important from a research perspective that we've shown is the importance of self-leadership, to be able to be autonomous. In some research I have done together with colleagues, we have shown that the importance of having a clear goal, a clear purpose, what I'm supposed to deliver, what I'm giving to the company, that is super important. If you have a clear goal, we've seen in the area of self-leadership that you lower the cognitive stress, but you raise your performance. So to be able as a company to go from what we are producing down to what the teams are producing, down to what the individuals are producing, that is very important to get the motivation and to get the direction for people. One thing that has happened now during the pandemic, which I think also is very important after the pandemic, is to get a work-life balance. And how do we do that? Well, in work-life science, we've talked about separating and integrating work and life for quite some time now. And during the pandemic, what I have seen in my interviews is that it's a matter of where and when you work, the time and place. And I don't see that any of these 4 strategies that I'm going to talk about is bad or better, but it's a matter of taking a conscious decision on where and when to work. So if you're a total separator, an orange one, you like to work at office hours and sit at your desk. If you're a blue one, you like to total integrate. So it doesn't matter where or when you work. It's totally up to when it's something to do and when you feel like working. If you're a gray, you separate on time. So you separate on office hours, or a yellow, you separate on place. So you can work anytime, but you go to the office. And I think this is an important thing for individuals to think of, to get a work-life balance. So we keep the flexibility, but we don't live totally without boundaries. So if I put on my psychic vision, what do I want? If I could choose where we work and live, how would we do that? I wish that we are flexible, that we can work when and where we want to. I wish that we are close to family and friends and have time for them. I wish that we stop doing ridiculous business travels. like going from one city to another city for a 1-hour meeting and then spend the rest of the day going back again. No, don't do that. Do those meetings digitally. Of course, we want to travel. Of course, we're going to meet. Of course, we're going to work together, but spend more time then. Meet more seldom, but spend more time. And eat together and socialize and have coffee and be creative. Those are the things we're going to do when we meet. And those are the things we want to do at the office as well when we go together. So I wish that both cities and countrysides can flourish. I believe that we're going to have headquarters in big cities where it's easy to travel, but that we work from home and that we maybe live further away from the headquarter, but that we might have a co-working hub or somewhere else where we can go and work for our daily coffee and for our daily chat. That is what I hope from the future. So what now? I want to encourage all organizations to start thinking, start having strategies. Where and when should people work? How much should they be back at the office? What should be done at the office? What areas and what settings is needed at the office so that it suits what people will do there? Some people might need focus work because they need to get away from home to get stuff done. Many will want the social setting, work together, be creative, have a whiteboard, do all of that stuff that we've missed, and have coffee together, good coffee together. I think that we're just in the beginning of this change, evolution, revolution. And what if we will start recruiting based on competence, not on geography? I actually moved. You're now visiting me in my home in Ölme, which is a super small countryside place in the middle of Värmland in Sweden. But I live here, but work mostly in Stockholm, but haven't been there in many months. And that's because we live and work digitally. And isn't that great to have life quality and to have a good qualified work life?
Oh, so many interesting thoughts from you, Lena. Always a pleasure to hear what you have to say, and fascinating to get your predictions for the future. We're going to go through some of those, discuss some of those topics in more detail with the first panel of the day. And Thomas, you're going to introduce them for us.
Yes, this will be really exciting. Joining Lena, we have Andy Watts. He's the Director of Technology at a company called Grimshaw. It's a design and innovation company based in London. And we also have Margaret Steiner. She's an architect, and she's a project leader and works with white architects here in Stockholm. And finally, we have Stefan Jeleby. He's a category manager, client solutions for HP in Sweden, and Stefan is based in Gothenburg. So already there, we are in a lot of different places.
Yeah, we certainly are. So thanks to all of you joining us on the panel. We can just see you out of shot on a little computer. So if we're looking down at any point, that's why. And once again, to all of you at home, thank you very much for joining us. Do put your questions to the panel in the chat, and we'll try and get as many of those to the panelists as we can. Please do not be shy. We would really love your input on this. So let's kick off then with a couple of questions for the panel, just feeding directly off what Lena said. She said she's not been commuting to Stockholm. She's stayed in the countryside. What about the rest of you? And how have you felt about new working patterns? Let's start with Andy.
So I think from my perspective, working patterns have definitely changed. You know, we've been in quite a significant lockdown in London for a while now. And it has taken some adjustment. So, you know, when we were in the office, I walked to work every day. So it's now a walk either way, which was really good, I found, as a way of waking up in the morning, but also turning off in the evening. So I could get home and just disconnected from work. And so that has obviously gone. So, you know, work-life balance was mentioned. That's been fine in terms of physically stopping working, but in terms of mentally stopping working, I think that's been more of a challenge. I don't miss the I do miss the commute in terms of the outside time, but not necessarily in terms of the time saved to do other things. Like, I can do some exercise at home. I can have dinner with my wife. So yeah, habits have changed, and I think there'll definitely be a hybrid going forward for me.
Interesting reflections there. It definitely has been a very different atmosphere in London compared to Stockholm over the past year or so. Margaret, what's it been like for you?
Well, about 2 years ago, White did a complete digital overhaul. So we, as staff, had been gotten to be a really great place when we started the pandemic. So right away, we could have our digital tools that were up and working. We could borrow home a large screen, even office stools or a table if needed, or desk if needed. So in that respect, everything went very smoothly. So from a personal level, though, I haven't noticed that much of a difference for myself, because we have like 13 different offices, 14 now if you count the new Stuttgart office. So we're really used to working cross office, cross country, cross team, and that hasn't changed much. I'm used to working with people in different time zones. For example, the Canada market business development team, I work with them a lot. And even during the pandemic, we worked on pitches with a great team in Kigali, another team in in Canada, in Montreal. And then we have our Region Villages partner, which is in Silicon Valley. So I'm kind of used, for good or bad, used to round the clock looking at my texts and, sort of being on and off call.
But how have you found that though, Margaret, when you haven't been able to intersperse that with necessarily going for a drink or going to a party or going to the gym in the same way that you might have done before? Have you still managed to find that balance and switch off?
Well, a large secret or a little secret, I have my COVID friends, one or two, that I've been meeting since the beginning. And that's kind of like my circle, and then my kids and my husband are home. So it's been a really small social circle, but luckily, one of my good friends, one of my COVID friends, we worked on a project together. So she doesn't work for White, but so I got that kind of let's have a bottle of wine, but also talk about work and everything else in life. So it's not been so bad. But I do see in Stockholm how many people have a quite different reality. There was a time when I had to commute for about 20, 30 minutes a day outside of the city. And you could see that there were plenty of people that were taking the train to work. They had a regular work schedule. Either they had a job where they couldn't work from home, or it just weren't the greatest circumstances for them to stay at home and work.
Yeah,
with children.
We could talk a lot more about the Swedish COVID strategy, but we'd be here all day. But Stefan, what about you? What have been your learnings from working during the pandemic, and what do you think the new normal will be when it comes to the future of how we work?
Yeah, we talk a lot about this with our customers, obviously, and I would say we definitely agree with what has already been said when we talk to our customers and the end users. The majority, let's say more than 8 out of 10, would like to have a hybrid work-life setup, meaning a balanced approach, working from home, but also connecting in the office space when needed. And there are a lot of new challenges to this, of course. We talk a lot about, since most probably many of us will continue to work from home, perhaps the majority of our time, or at least 50%, it's really important to have a good setup at home as well. From an ergonomic standpoint, what displays, etc., am I using? We're sitting perhaps 7, 8 hours a day in front of the screen. So and the chair and everything in terms of ergonomics is really important to really try to have as good a setup as you can at home.
Definitely. I've
But
got
also
2 cushions behind me because I am my own boss as a freelancer, and I haven't invested in a good chair and table. But I want to move the discussion on a little bit, and first of all see from Thomas if we've had any input from the audience yet, and if not, to remind people to get in touch.
No, not any questions as yet, and we do encourage them. Please send them in. We'll love to have them. And but I have a question to perhaps first and forward, Andy and Margaret. In your work with your clients, Lena talked about the change of work life, working from home and having the big companies with the head offices in the big cities. How will you see this will going to affect the trends in the building industry later on for real estate owners and so on? How will this impact the coming challenges for design and the demands?
Will we need pandemic-friendly offices for the future? Yeah,
like that, or will trends go completely some other way? What do you say, Margaret?
Well, in terms of, I mean, has already been a pre-pandemic shift in the way that architects work, and that's been accelerated. And I think more and more, maybe this is a bit radical, but I think more and more our end delivery as architects will not necessarily be a set of drawings and that's it. It might be more of something that goes on to life cycle of the building. And this, of course, will coincide with what our clients, what their demands are, and how the construction industry changes as they're demanding more and more, the people who are building demanding more and more 3D models to look at instead of the classic drawing set, then we'll have to change our way of working. So in some way, this slowdown, both slowdown and speed ahead has given us time to reflect, like how do we, what will be our end product as architects? I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, partly, yes. And I think that's very interesting. And I was going to ask Andy, you experienced a serious lockdown in UK of this. How will you see the experience from this affecting the way you design your homes for the future, considering working from home will probably be kind of regular moving on?
Yeah, well, I think we've had to seriously consider the way that our staff are equipped. You know, Margaret mentioned hardware and the home setup, but even in terms of the platforms that are being used. So we've seen a huge uptake in products like Miro, which are just, you know, online whiteboards, which have really had to step in to replace those, you know, the act of physically pinning up work and going over it with a red marker, which is, you know, it's still something that is very precious to architects. You know, people like to start drawing on things. So how can that start to manifest in this kind of digital or this hybrid world? So we've been putting a lot of thought into that. And especially as we start to return to our offices, even in a hybrid mode, you know, there's still going to be an aspect of that digital working. So that can stem from using out of the box tools like online whiteboards, like Mural, like Miro, through to we're starting to explore how immersive technologies can actually start to play a role in that. So can we be, you know, equipping our staff with headsets, with digital tablets, so that they can actually start sketching in a much more, hopefully more ergonomic and more natural way, rather than having to, you know, use a mouse on a screen. Can they actually be, you know, using up-to-date and emerging technologies to aid them?
Really interesting stuff, Andy. I've got 2 more quick questions. Firstly, Lena talked a little bit about people perhaps moving further away from cities. We've seen that already happening in the UK and parts of the US. That's been a bit of a big thing as well. Stefan, what do you think of that? Do you think there'll be a trend for people moving away from capital cities and perhaps to smaller cities like Gothenburg or other parts of Sweden? What do you think that trend will be both here and around Europe?
Definitely, and we've already seen that starting and has been progressing throughout the last year, I would say. Before the pandemic, everyone was talking about urbanization, the trend to move into cities. I think with the pandemic, and hopefully this is my personal view, I think it's a good approach to have the opposite trend, meaning that it is possible to as Lena was mentioning, moving back home to the countryside. I think that brings a lot of new opportunities for people to live elsewhere outside of big urban environments.
Yeah, and I just want to bring back in Lena finally to kind of pick up on that. I'm wondering how much do you think cultural factors will be at play? I mean, here in Sweden, it's not seen as such a privilege as it is in other countries to perhaps have a second home in the countryside, or you're trusted to maybe spend some of your time in the summer working from those locations, even before the pandemic. Quite different to the approach in the UK and the US, for example. Do you think those countries will be more likely to flip back to the sort of bums on seats, have to be in the office when the boss is there approach? Or do you think, I'm guessing from what you've said, do you think the pandemic has perhaps shifted away from that norm? But I'm just wondering what kind of difference you think there might be between different countries.
Yeah, I think there will be quite a bit of change because it has to do with trust and autonomy. And we know from value surveys that those are quite different. Though I do think that there will be some change also in the UK and definitely also in the US. For example, Silicon Valley and San Francisco, they have certainly seen a big urban escape. So people are moving out from San Francisco. The rents for apartments are down like 50% in San Francisco right now. And I think once they move there, they will not definitely move back if they can move from home a couple of days a week and maybe go into San Francisco or into Silicon Valley for 2 or 3 days a week. Yeah. That's a big difference. Really, so I think we will see differences in different countries, but there will be changes everywhere.
And a lot of that, of course, affecting what our cities look like in the future, with perhaps different people who couldn't afford to live in city centres being able to move back, different types of buildings. Thomas, any final questions from the audience or points from you?
Yes, we have a couple of questions coming in, and it's really exciting. And first, Sean, perhaps following up on my previous question, what do you think will happen to the new and existing office buildings in terms of this? How will this affect this?
If I can come in on that one, I mean, we're visiting that as part of our own strategy at the moment. What is the purpose of the Grimshaw office? Is it the place where people go to actually do work, or does it just become a collaborative hub? You know, when we want to bring clients into the office and have a meeting with them, can we start to, fit out the office so that it's really for that collaboration, engagement, communication, conversation, and less about sitting there at a computer drawing plans? That's the kind of work that you can comfortably take on in your own space if you want to. I mean, you can come into the office and do it if your own circumstances maybe, suit office working better. But I think the focus of the office is starting to shift a lot more rather than, the rows and rows of computers.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. And I think that's something going to affect us quite a lot in the construction industry. To make this happen, I have one final question for Lena coming from the audience. You touched before the trust on management. And so I'm going to read this. What's the difference now? Remote working has been used for some time, but what will make the leaders trust the staff also after the pandemic?
Yeah, why shouldn't they?
Yeah, it's a good answer.
That's my question back. The argument, it doesn't work to work from home, it's kind of not holding anymore because it has worked. And I've met so many managers and interviewed so many managers these last 14 months. And what's interesting is that no one has said that people are not delivering. So people are definitely delivering. A lot of them are working more than they should have. And if there is a problem with someone not doing their work, it has not to do with the homework. It has to do with some other issue. And there was already an issue before the pandemic. So I do hope that if we did not have trust, we have gained trust during the pandemic.
Yeah, thank you very much. So thank you very much. That was most interesting. And thank you for your contribution, all of you. It was really great having you. But time is moving on and we need to move on further. And thank you very much for a fantastic first panel discussion for the first day. Thank you very much.